May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Be seated. It is interesting when you think about it how much of our lives can be driven by insecurity, or how much others try to manipulate us by our insecurity. In the political arena, we were told again and again by both sides, if the other side wins, it is the end of the world as we know it, and our country is one step closer to extinction. So much of advertising is based on the premise of, well, your life will not be complete until you buy this product. You can only be happy when you have this car, this truck, this boat, this purse, this bank account. And of course, it never satisfies, because once you have it, the bar is set ever higher. In personal relationships, too often we feel insecure or threatened, and so we put someone else down. If I can keep you out and make you feel less, then maybe I'll feel more important. We saw this in both the Numbers reading today and in the Gospel reading today. In the Old Testament, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp, and people run to Moses saying, "Stop them." And the Gospel readings opens with, "Teacher, we saw some casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us." Because he was not following us. When we read this, it sounds selfish and it sounds fearful, and yet it also sounds familiar. Because too often we say, those people don't deserve a place at the table. Those people didn't help build this church. Those people don't volunteer. Those people don't worship like us. Those people's parents and grandparents weren't born here. To which Jesus says, stop. The gospel says, let me show you a more excellent way, a more loving way. Stop worrying about worthiness, about who is in and who is out. Because in gospel terms, none of us are worthy. None of us are worthy. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But God doesn't care. Or better, more accurately, God cares enough to wipe out unworthiness through Jesus. Because Jesus is worthy and perfect, in Jesus and through Jesus, we get to count his worthiness, Jesus' worthiness, as our worthiness. And our unworthiness is wiped out. Today's collect says it clearly. O God, you declare your almighty power. How? Chiefly in showing mercy and pity. Not judgment, not vindication, not exclusion, not retribution. But you show your almighty power through mercy and pity. Because Jesus is worthy and perfect, in Jesus and through Jesus, we get to count his worthiness, Jesus' worthiness, as ours. And our unworthiness is wiped out. That's a great deal. It is such a great deal that we don't believe it. We can't leave well enough alone. We think, well, there has to be a catch. Surely I have to do something to measure up. Wait, if you truly knew me, the real me, the unclean me with all the disgusting habits, there'd be an exception. Wait, this can't apply to him. This wonderful deal can't apply to them. And the response to these spurious objections, Moses says, are you jealous for my sake? Would that all God's people were prophets, and the Lord would put his Spirit in them. All God's people. Would that all God's people were prophets. All. Not just Episcopalians of proper pedigree. Jesus says, whoever is not against us is for us. 2 weeks ago, we talked about how Mark's gospel has shifted. And in the gospel narrative, Jesus is now moving towards the cross. 2 weeks ago, we had the dramatic confrontation with Peter, where Jesus tells Peter, "Get behind me, tempter. Follow me." We were reminded that the only criterion for following Jesus seems to be actually following Jesus. Not a membership card, not a paid-up pledge, not owning a plot in the graveyard, not being baptized here a bunch of years ago, but actually following Jesus, actually being about the business of the kingdom, sharing the good news, welcoming, loving, day by day, relying on the promise of God's love, God's forgiveness, and day by day, trying to make Jesus' values our values, Jesus' priorities our priorities, and seeing things through Jesus' point of view. Well, that's all well and good, but what about the hyperbole in today's gospel about chopping off hands and feet and gouging out eyes? Well, a few words. First, it is hyperbole. It's a way of teaching or exhorting or arguing by extremes. And we do it all the time in common conversation. I was so embarrassed I could have just died. It was so hot on tournament day I thought I was going to melt. What is it that has Jesus so worked up? Misleading others, causing dissension within the kingdom, creating barriers where God has opened the doors of welcome. So Jesus says, if any of you put a stumbling block before one of these little ones who believe in me, well, watch out, because it's not going to be pretty. Is there anything that you are doing that gets in the way of the kingdom? Let it go. Get rid of it. Anything that distracts you, stop looking at it. Remember your focus. Follow. Actually follow Jesus. As long as you are doing your best to turn your head, your heart, your hands, your feet to Jesus, God will do the rest. You have no need for insecurity, no fear of being manipulated by fear, because God's pity, God's mercy, God's power, God's love does the rest. Amen.